afternoon, church.
Amen.
I thank God for the gift of life, that we can be here today. And I'll be speaking with my husband not around, but yeah, it happens, God is good. I would like to thank everybody who took part, children's story and scripture, reading, offertory, and intercessory prayer. I thank you for participating. This morning, I want us to talk about your perspective. Your perspective. When we're talking about perspective, we are talking about how you view, how you look at things. So, when we look at this picture, I would like to ask the congregation, where is this person facing? It's everybody, so I want to see, okay, which side? This side? This side? Or the front? How many people are saying he's facing the front? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9 people are saying he's facing this way. How many people are saying he's facing that way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 9 are saying he's facing that way. Huh?
It depends on your position.
Oh, it depends on your position?
Yes.
Okay, so 9 people are saying he's facing that way. He's facing both ways. No, you have to choose one side, Yeah?
You can't say one specific place.
Oh, yeah, but as a perspective, how do you view this picture? You're not supposed to be half-half. You have to choose one. Oh, so it's not straight, it's 45 degrees. Okay, we can take the picture off. Okay, so the way we have answered, some people think he's facing that way, some people think he's facing that way. That's your perspective, that's the way you're looking. Yeah. So for you are viewing that picture as if the person is looking that way, and then the other people, they think he's viewing that way. That's, the other side. That's your perspective. Whatever you think, wherever side you think the person is looking, it's your perspective. So today I want us to look at our individual perspective about God, His commandments, and His promises. We have to remember that our perspective will define what we do. We do things according to our perspective. There was this company that was making shoes. So they sent a salesman to a certain place to see if there can be a market for them to sell shoes. So when this salesman went to this area, he found that everybody was barefoot. So when he found out that everybody was barefoot, then he called the company. He said, Mr. Manager, can I please come back because there's no market here. People don't put on shoes, everybody's barefoot. So the manager said, okay, you can come back. They sent a second salesman in the same area. When the salesman went there, he found that everybody was barefoot. Then he called the manager. He said, hey, Mr. Manager, can you please make a lot of shoes? Because there's market here. People don't have shoes. So that means I'll sell a lot of shoes. So the manager sent a lot of shoes and he sold them. These are 2 people who went on the same area, but they had 2 different perspectives. So each way was correct. People are not putting on shoes, maybe there's no market, or people are not putting on shoes, you can find a market. So, I want us to look at the story about the children of Israel. When we read Numbers chapter 13 and chapter 14, I will not go into details like each and every verse because it's a big story, but We'll be reading maybe a verse 1 here and there as we go, and I'll just be explaining. So when we read Numbers chapter 13, let's read verse 1 and 2. Numbers chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, everyone a chief among them." So we are looking at the children of Israel. God is telling Moses, tell these people that you are sending the spies there, but you have to make sure that you are sending one person per each tribe. So we know that the tribes were 12. So Moses had to choose one person per tribe to go and spy the land of Canaan. And when you heard, when you listened, when I was reading the Bible, God said, to the land that I am giving to them. So God is giving them that land, but he wants them to go and spy on the land. So Moses went to the people and chose, one person per tribe to go. When we read chapter 13, verse 17 to 20. Okay, let's read. So we can find out what God wanted them to look for when they go there. Verse 17, Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, "Go up into Negeb and go up into the hill country and see what the land is, and whether the people who dwell in there are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land." Now the time was the season of the first grapes. So we are seeing what they are going to do. They had special instructions. When you go there, this is what you are looking for. Is the land fertile or not? Are the people strong or not? Does the land have trees or not? So these 12 people started off going to the land of Canaan. They entered through the south and then went all the way to the north. It took 40 days for them to come back. The people of Israel, they had high hopes that when these people go and come back with a report, they expected that they will be happy to possess the land that God has promised them. So they were waiting, patiently waiting for the 12 spies to come back with a report, because God promised them that he will give them that land. So after 40 days, the news came around that, the 12 spies are back. Everybody was happy to know that the 12 spies who went to Canaan came back and they made it back safely. So there was joy among the children of Israel, because they knew that their people came back safely. Remember that each tribe had sent one man. So it meant that every tribe was happy because they knew that their man came back safely. So they celebrated because they knew their people came back. The spies brought back some fruits from this land. Remember when we read from 17 to 20, Moses said, "Be courageous and bring some fruits from that land." So these men brought some fruits. They brought some grapes. It was time for grapes. So they said the grapes that they brought, a cluster of grapes couldn't be carried by one man. It had to be two men carrying just a cluster of grapes. And they also brought some fig fruits from there, and also pomegranates. The people were so happy to learn that the land that God has promised to give them was so fruitful. They had big grapes and big fruits. And they were happy to possess this land. They all listened attentively to the report when these people were busy giving a report to Moses and the whole congregation. They were so happy to hear what these people saw in that land. These people did not want to miss any point, any information about the promised land. So they came around and gathered to listen. So when they saw these fruits, I believe the whole congregation, maybe they cheered because they were happy now to say after being in the wilderness for a long time, they are about to possess a land that is fertile and fruitful. They were happy to go and possess it. But after starting with the good report of the fruit, when we read chapter 13, verse 28 to 30, so some of these verses I'll be saying, then you can be looking while I'm talking. So they, after celebrating that they saw good fruits from this land, when we read chapter 13, verse 28 to 30, we see that the 10 spies out of the 12, that good news now was being distorted. The 10 spies continued. We brought these fruits from the land that you sent us to. But however, the people who live in the city are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. So Caleb, when he heard that they are trying to explain more about how the people look, in verse 30, we see Caleb tried to quiet these men. He said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." The 10 spies dwelt on the negative perspective. They continued. When we read chapter 13, verse 31 to 33, they said, "We are not able to go up and possess that land because that land has strong people." They distorted the report. They said the land devours its inhabitants, but this is the land that they brought big fruits. How come a land that produces big fruits can eat its own people? This was a lie. They said, "We saw great height people, tall people, sons of Anak." So when we read verse 33, towards the end, that these 10 spies are saying, "We seemed to ourselves as grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them as grasshoppers." They are continuing the report. They started well, but now the report is changing. In other ways, they were saying, it is useless for the whole congregation of Israelites to think that we can possess that land. So the attitude of the people changed. The people, after celebrating, after seeing the fruit, now everybody was sad. Everybody was discouraged. The devil had planted discouragement in their hearts. So the whole congregation was discouraged and they became fearful. And this fear made them to forget what God had done for them. This fear made them forget the mighty power of God, who had led them from the land of Egypt to the wilderness where they were at that particular time. The people, because of fear, did not take time to think about the great things that God had done for them. And they also forgot that God promised to give them the land. So the height of the people didn't matter, but God promised that He would give them the land. They had forgotten God made a way on the Red Sea for them to cross. They left God out of the whole situation and started depending on their own power to do things. But when we read Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding." Amen. This report made them to distrust God, who had provided for them all this time, the one who had led them by cloud during the day and by a pillar of fire by the night. Amen. These people triggered their report triggered their past behavior of murmuring. They started murmuring again, murmuring at Moses, murmuring at Aaron, murmuring at God Himself. We see that these 10 spies, they were determined to discourage anybody who had a positive perspective. They were determined to discourage all the efforts to get the land of Canaan. In their minds, when they were telling people, they were trying to say, this congregation is listening, and when they said the bad report, the people were like in their hearts feeling, we have traveled all the way from Egypt to here. Is really this the report that we have to receive at this time, when we can see, because wherever they were, it was close to Canaan, they could see. So they are close to God in this land, the promised land, but they're getting a bad report, so they were discouraged. When we read Numbers chapter 14, verse 2 going down, we see how they complained. These people started complaining now because of the bad report, because of the negative perspective of the 10 spies. They said, it would have been better for us to die in Egypt or here in the wilderness. Why did the Lord bring us out of Egypt only for us to come and die in the wilderness? It's better we would have died there. Our wives and our children will become prey. It is better for us to go back to Egypt. They forgot all the promises of God and what God had done for them because of a negative perspective of 10 spies. So, they continued rebelling against God. They said, let us choose a leader so we can go back to Egypt among themselves. They accused not only Moses and Aaron, but they also accused God of deceiving them. So they felt like God deceived them in promising to give them the land of Canaan, which after listening to the report, it seemed that it was impossible for them to possess this land. So we thank God that there were two people who had a positive perspective.
Amen.
Joshua and Caleb, when they heard these 10 spies distorting the report, they tore their clothes. When we read Numbers chapter 14, verse 6 to 9, they said, the land that we passed through is very good, the land of milk and honey. If the Lord delights with us, he will bring us into the land and give it to us.
Amen.
This land is a land that flows with milk and honey. Do not rebel against God, and do not fear the people of the land.
Amen.
For they are our bread, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear. Just two people who had a different perspective from the 10 spies. So we know always when there's majority with earthly things, the majority rules. The whole congregation was mad. They were angry because these two people are trying to give a positive perspective when 10 people have said already that they are strong people and they can't possess the land. So in verse 10, chapter 14, verse 10, we see that the whole congregation was angry at them and they said, let's stone these two people because they are having a positive perspective. 10 people have told us that we can't go in this land, and these two are saying that we can. So they were very angry with them. But we see the glory of God appearing in the temple, in the tent of gathering. So when we read chapter 14, verse 13, we see God is telling Moses to say, how long will these people despise me? How long will they not believe in me despite whatever I've done in their lives? I brought them from the land of Egypt. I fed them. I opened the water for them. But still, they don't want to believe in me. I'll destroy them. But we see a good leader, Moses, interceding for the people.
Amen.
To say, God, don't
Amen.
destroy these people.
Amen.
Forgive them. You have brought them this far. If you destroy them now, people are going to say, oh, their God failed to take them to Canaan. That's why he just destroyed them in the wilderness. So we see, despite their murmuring, but Moses still interceded for the people. On the other hand, we see the Lord himself, the mighty in battle, coming in his glory to fight for the two people who had positive perspective.
Amen.
No matter what you are doing, no matter how other people feel about you, but if you are doing the right thing, and if it is God's will, He's going to fight for you.
Amen.
You don't have to give up no matter what you face, because He's always there and His promises are true.
Amen.
So we see that God heard whatever they were saying, because these people, they were grumbling against God. Why did you bring us? Our children are going to be prey. Or it's better we die in here. We have to be careful. Whatever we say, God listens.
Amen.
And He's going to honor whatever we are saying.
Amen.
So we see these people, God is saying, okay, you said a lot. Moses, tell these people that whatever they said, I heard it. They said they want to go back to Egypt. They said it's better to die in the wilderness. They said their wives and children will be prey. Tell them that now they should start going back towards the Red Sea. When you read verse 25 of chapter 14, tell them to start going back. Because whatever they were saying, I heard it. So Moses told the congregation, he says, oh, my brothers and sisters, whatever you said, God heard. Now we have to turn back, going towards the Red Sea, because that's what the congregation said. So we see that the people, when they heard this divine command to say they have to start going back, they changed, their thinking. No, we don't want to go back. But you told God that you want to go back. He honored your request, you have to go back. And you are saying, no, we don't want to go back. God honors whatever we're saying.
Amen.
He's going to do it. Let's hope we're asking good things. So God says, all of you are going back, and I'm giving you 40 years. You're going to wander again another 40 years in the wilderness. Until all of you from 20 years up, you die in the wilderness. You will die in the wilderness, everybody from 20 years up. But 19 going down, those are little ones, the ones that they claimed to be prey. God is saying those young ones are the ones that are going to go to the promised land that I told you that I'll give it to you. But all of you, you will die in the wilderness, except the two positive perspective people, Caleb and Joshua.
Amen.
So it's good to stand for God, no matter what the majority says.
Amen.
So we see the men that brought a bad report, they were not even given that 40 years. They died on the spot. When the glory of God appeared, those people died. The 10 of them died on the spot. They were not given another 40 years to wander in the wilderness. So the whole congregation, at first they seemed as if they are going to repent, but it seems no, they didn't repent. Their hearts were hardened. And they said, no, we are not going back. Even if God is saying we should go back, they got up early in the morning. They said, we are going to Canaan. We are going to the land that God promised to give us. We are going and fight. But if you remember, when I was reading chapter 13, the very first verses, 1 and 2, God told them what to look for, if the land is fertile or not, if there are fruits or not, if there are trees or not. He didn't say if you can fight or not, because he promised that he will give them. He didn't say you will go and fight. So the negative perspective, the 10 spies, they went there and they started leaning on their own understanding to say, we can't fight these people, but God promised to give them free. So they were supposed to just abide by God's word to enter into Canaan when God wants them to, not at their own will or not at their own time. So we see the children of Israel getting up early in the morning. They are trying to go and fight when God didn't tell them to go and fight. So whatever God says, it will stand. It will not change because of our perspective. No matter how we look at it, maybe it's painful, we think it's painful, we can't do it, maybe it's hard, but what he says, it will stand, no matter how we look at it. So we see that God gave them a privilege to enter Canaan. All they needed to do is just enter when God says so. They didn't need to think about the height of the people, how powerful the people were. So we see that when they tried to go and fight, God will always tell you, when you are trying to do something wrong, you know, that little voice that comes, don't do this, my child. But in this situation, we see Moses warning these people. These people are prepared to go and fight. And Moses is telling them, please don't go, because the Lord is not with you. If you go there, you'll be defeated. But when you have a negative perspective, you are controlled by your emotions, you don't listen to anybody, and you just go and do. So these people, they started off going to fight. It was sad because the Canaanites had heard that these children of Israel are coming. So they prepared and went high where there were rocks and, hide there. So when the Israelites were going up, they were just rolling stones. So some of them were killed by stones. Some of them were killed by the sword. Some of them were pursued, chased. They were chased. They were running away. And imagine, these Canaanites had heard about the God of Israel who would fight battles for them. But when they were defeated here, that good news that was there before, it didn't stand. Because they failed. But they failed because God was not among them. Not that God failed. But them, because they were trying to lean on their own power, their own understanding, they failed miserably. So, we see that after defeat, then they came back, then they had to go back now to their request, going back towards the Red Sea, where they wanted to go. And they died in the wilderness. Only the young generation stayed. And reports went all around. Those children of Israel, you heard that God fights? No, this time they were defeated. It went all over because they did not listen. And also because of following a negative perspective of the 10 spies. When God said, I'll give you, he meant he will give them.
Amen.
They didn't need to look at the height of the people. No matter what big problems you have, when God says, I'll fight for you. Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, he said, I will uphold you with my right hand of righteousness. You should not fear because I'm your God. So what we need to do is to trust him no matter what. It may seem hard, but he's always with us and his promises are true. There are some lessons that we are learning from this story. When we go home, we can read the 2 chapters and see how it went. But the first thing that we are learning in this story is inferiority complex. How can a man of God who came from Egypt, fed, with manna, water from the rock, walked on a Red Sea that was dry, they've seen all the glory of God, how God has taken care of them, and they are claiming to be grasshoppers in the eyes of unbelievers. How can they say we saw ourselves as grasshoppers and those people also saw us as grasshoppers? They didn't tell them that they saw them as grasshoppers. I don't believe so. Do we do the same? Sometimes that we look at ourselves and we forget that we are children of God.
Amen.
We forget the promises that God has promised to us.
Amen.
And in a little problem, then we are like, I think I can't do this. I don't think I can do it. Where is our faith? He promised to fight for us. We just have to trust in him.
Amen.
Sometimes this inferiority complex just stays in us even in our daily life, not only spiritual life, but also our physical life, our daily life. That we don't want to face challenges of life, whether it's work. Sometimes we feel, I can't do this. I think this position is just for white people. I can't handle it. Maybe we go to school, the young ones. Oh, I think this course is so tough. This one graduated. I think this one is the right person to do it. I can't do it. No, we are children of God.
Amen.
We are all special in his eyes.
Amen.
And we can all accomplish whatever we feel like accomplishing.
Amen.
We have to stop calling ourselves grasshoppers.
Amen.
We are children of God. The other thing is fear. You know, when a person has fear, you become doubtful because of that fear. So sometimes as Christians, we look down upon ourselves because of fear. We are afraid. Therefore, we don't want to show our talents when we are working in church, because we feel like if I fail, then people are going to talk about me that I didn't do that one. I'm not able to do that thing. But sometimes also because of fear, we don't want to commit our financial, like money, to God's work.
Amen.
Because we are afraid. God is promising us, Malachi chapter 3, verse 10, bring tithe to my house so that there should be food in there. But what do? We are scared. We are afraid. Because of fear, we feel, okay, if I give my tithe, then maybe I won't be able to pay rent. They will chase me. Where is our faith? The same God who has brought us through all those problems that we know individually, He's able to fight for us. He will not let them chase us out of their houses where we are living because we gave tithe, because we returned tithe. He will fight for us. We just have to believe. Let's have that positive perspective like Caleb and Joshua. And sometimes this fear makes us, not willing to work in the church because we are afraid. Okay, let's remember that no matter what the majority says, even if maybe majority can be against us, God has promised to fight for us. Just see how the glory of God came down when people said they wanted to stone those two people. God came, and nobody could stand when He came down. So we have to believe that He's with us. We should not fear, because God says we should not be dismayed. He will fight for us. The other thing is the negative spirit, negativity. Sometimes, in some situations, we look at the negative side. We need to start looking at positively on things.
Amen.
We should not just be concentrating on every situation that is there. We just always go on the negative side. We don't see any positivity. Like the 10 spies. They saw the fruits. They saw the fertile land. Came with a report distorted because they concentrated on the negative side, which was the height of the people of Canaan. And also because those people were strong. What they forgot is there was a positive side that God promised that I will give you the land. He didn't say you will go and fight, but He promised I will give this land. You just need to go and spy on it, but I'm giving it to you. So they were supposed to just believe that God is going to give them, no matter how the people looked. Amen. The other thing is emotions. These people were saying, let's stone these people. We're controlled by the emotions. How do our emotions control us? When somebody is influenced by the emotions, most of the times, your mind is closed to the truth and proper reasoning. You can't reason properly when you are emotional. A good example is when somebody is mourning. When somebody is mourning because they're emotional, sometimes they mention a lot of things, okay? Yeah, the elderly people will know. They mention a lot of things, maybe whatever happened, I know why this happened, this. And then after burial, when they're saying, okay, because you were controlled with your emotions, you were mentioning things while you were crying and you didn't even know what you were saying. You end up being in problems because of whatever you were saying while you were controlled by your emotions. So we have to be careful that our emotions should not be controlling us.
Amen.
We have to control our emotions, not our emotions controlling us. Because if our emotions control us, we will be on the negative perspective side. Rebellion. We see the children of Israel rebelling against Moses, but also God. Just when they were about to receive this promised land, they ended up being given another 40 years to wander in the wilderness. How have we rebelled against God? We may look the same as fellow believers, but everybody individually, we know ourselves. Rebelling against God is not like you are challenging to say, or I'll fight God or something, but not doing His will. If we're not doing His will, that means we are rebelling against Him. So we have to be careful that we don't behave like the 10 spies who rebelled against God. And also, sometimes when we are rebelling, we may give an influence, like the way they influence the whole congregation to murmur against God. So we have to be careful that we're not rebelling against God, but we have to do His will.
Amen.
Another lesson that we're learning is positivity. We need to stand up for our God.
Amen.
And His commandments and His promises, just like Joshua and Caleb. We have to stand up. I am willing to do your work, no matter what, because we have the word that is telling us in Philippians chapter 3, verse 13, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. No matter what I'm going through, but He is strengthening me. So we have to stand on the promises and be positive, no matter what we're going through. Let us be a good influence wherever we are. Let us be a good influence just like Joshua and Caleb. Whether we are at work, let us be a good influence. Whether we are at home in our families, let us be a good influence. Whether we are at church, let us be a good influence towards God's work. We need our faith to be deep-rooted in God.
Amen.
Individually, we know where God brought us from. We have to remember, some of us, when we look at ourselves, we just say, but this God.
Amen.
You can't understand. Sometimes you sit down somewhere and start crying. I always tell my children about, because they know where I come from. So I say, do you remember those bushes? Do you remember those trees? Do you remember the small paths where you were passing? They're like, yes. I said, this is an awesome God.
Amen.
To bring us from there and put us here.
Amen.
Then when we reach here, we start murmuring.
Amen.
Why did God bring me from there? Oh, I could have been there. Oh, I was better there. No, we were not better. That's why we are here.
Amen.
We have to thank God.
Amen.
We have to stop murmuring.
Amen.
We were not better. If we were better, we would have been there.
Amen.
But the fact that He brought us here, let's be thankful.
Amen.
Let's be thankful to Him, because everybody individually, we know where He brought us from. So we should stop murmuring, because whatever we are saying, He told Moses, tell them I've been hearing whatever they said. So because they said it, turn around and go where you want to go. So we have to be thankful to God. We have to be to have a positive perspective towards God's work all the time, no matter what. No matter what, He will be with us. Whether it's work, whether it's school, whether it's the neighborhood where we are living at, let's act like Joshua and Caleb. Let's have a positive perspective towards one another. We should not look down on each other. But also let's have a positive perspective towards God's work, so that we can work until He comes. God will reward us in the end. He will just reward us. Joshua and Caleb. But the question still stands, what's your perspective? Is it positive or is it negative? So the choice is ours, whether we think God with His promises, they are true, or we are doubting Him. But I believe as children of God, we all know that His promises are true, and we'll continue working towards His goals and working towards His promises and His commandments until He comes to take us home. God bless you as you think about your perspective this afternoon. Thank you.